Have you ever wondered what you'd do if you were sent on an impossible mission, straight into the lair of a witch who eats people for breakfast? Today, we're diving into a story about exactly that. It's not just any fairy tale. It's a tale of courage, a creepy little doll, and a house that stands on chicken legs. This is the story of Vasilisa the Brave and the fearsome Baba Yaga. Our story begins with a young girl named Vasilisa. Her life was sweet and simple until her mother fell gravely ill. On her deathbed, her mother gave her a tiny wooden doll. "Vasilisa," she whispered, "keep this doll with you always. In times of trouble, feed her a little food and ask for her advice. She will help you." Shortly after, her mother passed away, and Vasilisa's world turned upside down. Her father, after a time of mourning, remarried. He chose a widow with 2 daughters of her own, hoping to give Vasilisa a new family. But this stepmother was cruel, and her daughters were just as wicked. They were jealous of Vasilisa's gentle beauty. From sunrise to sunset, they forced her to do all the work. She swept the floors, cooked the meals, and tended the garden, all while they sat around and criticized her. Vasilisa bore their cruelty without complaint. What they didn't know was that she had a secret friend, the little doll. Every night, when everyone else was asleep, Vasilisa would sneak a few crumbs from dinner to her doll. "Little doll," she'd say, "have some bread. Listen to my troubles and help me." The doll would eat the crumbs, and its eyes would glow. It would comfort Vasilisa and even help her with her chores, making the impossible tasks manageable. Thanks to the doll, Vasilisa stayed healthy and beautiful, which only made her step-family angrier. One autumn evening, the stepmother put out all the fires in the house, leaving only a single candle burning. She gave each of the girls some knitting, and then, as if by accident, snuffed out the last flame. The house was plunged into darkness. "What shall we do?" cried the stepsisters. "We need light to finish our work." The stepmother said, "One of you must go to Baba Yaga's hut in the forest to ask for fire." "I won't go. And you two," she said to her own daughters, "are too afraid. So Vasilisa, it must be you. Go, and don't you dare come back without fire." The stepsisters pushed Vasilisa out the door and into the terrifying, dark forest. Vasilisa was trembling with fear. She knew that Baba Yaga was a terrible witch who lived in a hut that stood on chicken legs and was surrounded by a fence made of human bones. People said she flew around in a giant mortar, sweeping away her tracks with a broom. And worst of all, she ate anyone who dared to cross her path. But Vasilisa remembered her mother's gift. She took out her doll and fed it a piece of bread she had saved. "Little doll," she whispered, "they're sending me to Baba Yaga for fire. I'm so scared. She will eat me." The doll's eyes began to glow. "Do not be afraid, Vasilisa," it chirped. "Go where you are sent. As long as I am with you, no harm will come to you." Feeling a bit braver, Vasilisa put the doll in her pocket and set off into the deep, dark woods. The forest was spooky, with twisted trees and strange noises all around. Suddenly, a figure on a white horse galloped past her. He was dressed all in white, and as he passed, the dark night began to turn into the dim light of dawn. This was day. She walked on, and soon another rider appeared, this one on a red horse, dressed all in red. As he passed, the sun rose, bright and warm. This was the sun itself. Vasilisa walked all day. As evening approached, she finally came to a clearing. In the middle of the clearing stood a hut unlike any she had ever seen. It was perched on enormous chicken legs, and it was spinning. Around it was a fence made of human bones, topped with skulls whose eyes glowed with an eerie light. This was the home of Baba Yaga. Vasilisa's heart pounded in her chest, but she held on to her doll and stood her ground. Just then, the ground began to shake. A third rider, this one on a black horse and dressed in black, galloped past her and into the gate. As he passed, night fell instantly. The eyes of the skulls on the fence flared to life, illuminating the clearing with a ghastly, flickering light. A terrible noise filled the air. the sound of the trees groaning and the leaves rustling. Baba Yaga was coming home. A giant mortar came flying through the trees, with Baba Yaga herself standing in it. She used the pestle as a rudder and swept her tracks away with a broom. She was a terrifying sight, with a long, bony nose and iron teeth. She landed with a thud and sniffed the air. "Fee, fee, fo, fum! I smell a human!" she shrieked, her voice like grinding stones. Her gaze fell on Vasilisa, who was trembling but trying her best not to show it. "Who are you?" Baba Yaga demanded. "And what do you want here?" "I am Vasilisa, grandmother," she said politely. "My stepmother sent me to ask you for fire." "Ah, I know your stepmother," Baba Yaga grumbled. "Very well. You'll get your fire, but first you must work for it. If you can do all the tasks I give you, you may have it. If you fail, well, then you will be my dinner." Baba Yaga led Vasilisa into the hut. The witch ordered her to cook a huge meal, clean the yard, separate a pile of wheat grain by grain from dirt, and sort a bushel of poppy seeds from a bushel of soil. The tasks were impossible for one person to complete in a single night. Baba Yaga ate her fill, then went to sleep, leaving Vasilisa with her impossible chores. Vasilisa felt a wave of despair wash over her. How could she possibly do all this? She took out her little doll and fed it some of the food from the witch's table. "Little doll, please help me," she cried. "Baba Yaga has given me impossible tasks. If I don't finish, she will eat me." "Do not worry, brave Vasilisa," the doll replied. "Eat your supper and go to sleep. The morning is wiser than the evening." Vasilisa did as the doll said. She ate a little and then fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up the next morning, she couldn't believe her eyes. All the tasks were done. The yard was spotless, the wheat was clean, and every single poppy seed was separated from the soil. She had just finished setting the table for breakfast when Baba Yaga woke up. The witch was shocked. "How did you do all this?" she screeched. Vasilisa, not wanting to reveal her secret, simply replied, "My mother's blessing helped me." Baba Yaga narrowed her eyes. She didn't like blessings. Very well," she grumbled. She couldn't find any reason to be angry, as the work was done perfectly. That day, she gave Vasilisa the same tasks again, but added even more. But again, the little doll helped Vasilisa, completing all the work while she slept. On the third day, Baba Yaga, still unable to find fault, decided to question the girl. "You're a strange one," she said. "Tell me, how do you manage to do everything so perfectly?" Vasilisa knew she had to be careful. She replied, "I do as I am told, and I also ask questions, but only about what I see outside the hut, not inside." Baba Yaga was intrigued. "Ask then," she said, curious about what the girl had noticed. "When I was coming here," Vasilisa began, "I saw a rider on a white horse. Who was he?" "That was my faithful servant, Day," said Baba Yaga. "And the rider on the red horse? That was my servant, the bright sun. And the rider on the black horse? That was my servant, the dark night." Baba Yaga seemed pleased with these questions. But then Vasilisa fell silent. "Why don't you ask about what is inside my hut?" the witch prodded. "About the disembodied hands that serve me?" Remembering the doll's advice to be cautious, Vasilisa replied, "You yourself said, grandmother, that asking too many questions can lead to trouble. I am content with what I've learned." Baba Yaga was taken aback. She hated people who were too curious. "You are wise not to ask," she said, almost smiling. "I don't like guests who poke their noses into my business. But now, tell me one last thing. How did you complete all those tasks?" Vasilisa looked at the fearsome witch and said honestly, "I was helped by the blessing of my mother." At the mention of a mother's blessing, Baba Yaga flew into a rage. "Get out of my house," she shrieked. "I want nothing blessed in my home. But you have earned your fire. Here, take it." She took one of the skulls from the fence, its eyes glowing with a malevolent fire, and stuck it on a pole. "Here is the fire for your stepmother and her daughters," she said with a cruel grin. "Take it and go." Vasilisa took the skull on the pole and ran from the hut as fast as she could. The light from the skull's eyes lit her way through the dark forest. She didn't look back. She ran until she reached her home. When she got to the gate, she was about to throw the skull away, but a hollow voice came from it saying, "Do not throw me away. Take me to your stepmother." So, Vasilisa carried the fiery skull into the house. As soon as she stepped inside, her stepmother and stepsisters, who had been without any fire since she left, rushed toward her. But the skull's glowing eyes fixed on them. The fiery gaze followed them wherever they tried to run. The wicked women couldn't escape it. By morning, the terrible fire from the skull had turned the cruel stepmother and her 2 daughters to ash. Only Vasilisa remained unharmed. Vasilisa buried the skull in the garden so it could harm no one else, locked up the house, and went to the nearby town. She found a home with an old woman and, with the help of her doll, became a master weaver, spinning the finest linen anyone had ever seen. He saw her skill and her gentle heart, and he fell in love. Her work was so beautiful that it caught the attention of the Tsar himself. He asked Vasilisa to be his wife, and she, seeing his kind nature, happily agreed. And so, Vasilisa the Brave, who faced the fearsome Baba Yaga and survived, became a Tsarina. Her father returned from his long journey, overjoyed to see his daughter so happy. The kind old woman and her little doll stayed with her in the palace, and she lived a long, happy life, always remembering the power of a mother's love and the courage she found within herself. What a journey, right? From a servant in her own home to a queen in a palace. Vasilisa's story teaches us that even in the darkest of times, a little bit of kindness, a sprinkle of courage, and maybe a magical friend can help us overcome anything. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure today. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next tale. See you next time.